Thanks very much, Ben. Cheers, Paul. Lovely to meet you guys. Yeah, so I'm Chris Hemmings. I have the pleasure of heading up EMEA sales at Signifyd. For those of you who haven't heard about Signifyd before, we use big data, machine learning, and a commerce network of transactions from about 11,000 merchants globally to help retailers to increase online conversion rates and reduce false declines. It's very topical from what Paul was saying as being on trend. All approved orders by Signifyd are backed by a complete financial guarantee. So if any of those approved transactions transpire to be fraudulent, we cover the merchant. And to give you an idea of scale, Signifyd processes more than $100 billion worth of online transactions annually. So what does that mean? That means that a customer that's new to a particular retailer is likely to be known to Signifyd. It's interesting that Paul mentioned acceleration in e-commerce adoption and CAGR models, because we have a ton of data, as you might imagine, for all of those billions worth of transactions. It's all publicly available and anonymized and aggregated too on our website, signifyd.com. But what we're looking at here is the difference between 2019 and 2020 sales. As you can see, in May, during the COVID pandemic, online sales peaked at a 70% increase in May. Evidencing that the same as Paul, the 5-year acceleration that we've seen. Next slide, please. If we look at the UK specifically of interest, you can see the massive leap when businesses were forced to close physical premises, drawing everybody exclusively online. And even when, from the 15th of June, when shops were allowed, non-essential retail was allowed to reopen, we've seen a slight dip in online transactions, but still 70% higher than pre-pandemic levels. And I think what we're all saying, and I agree with the gentleman the two guys who followed previously, new habits have been formed and are here to stay. So with those things in mind, those trends in mind, the challenge facing all retailers is holistically that acquiring customers is and always has been expensive. You know, companies spend a massive amount of money on SEO, search, affiliate marketing, brand partnerships, etc. And consumers, because of the likes of Google, Apple, Facebook, etc., Amazon, have unrealistic expectations. They expect frictionless and convenient experiences. And yet, despite those things, the liability for card not present transactions, so those made online or over the phone, the liability for fraud sits with the retailer. And their main partner in this business, the payment gateways, unfortunately for the retailer, have a fraud rate bias. They would rather the retailer has a lower fraud rate than a higher approval rate. The two things tend to go hand in hand. And tantamount to that is this idea of consumer experience, etc. So this is a very stereotypical e-commerce funnel that we see from retailers. This notion that the fear of loss drives down conversion rates. So for every 100 orders typically that retailers receive, actually only about 86 to 90% of those get shipped. That's the turquoise blue funnel. And yet certain retailers do also still see both fraud and abuse chargebacks. So this is where Signifyd can come in. So this just shows you the transformation from the pre and post. This is the revenue optimization on average that we bring about through the use of our commerce network and commerce protection platform. So that increase there in terms of the shipped orders, whilst completely mitigating all of the fraud risk. And final slide from me is a case study. So this is, it's interesting, Paul mentioned the people that are doing it well. The bed-in-a-box manufacturers are doing very well. So Emma Mattress is a long-term client of Signifyd's. They have been with us for about a year or so. They've seen more than a 10% increase in top-line revenues through our commerce network approving more transactions, whilst completely, as I say, transitioning any fraud risk from Emma to ourselves.